Welcome to Shoots&Roots, a practical video series that explores the joys and challenges of raising diverse kids through the different seasons of their lives.
See, it works.
Guys, thank you so much for the Shoots&Roots videos. I think they've been extremely helpful, if not to anyone else, to myself. I was chatting to my son the other day and I asked him a question and he gave me an answer and I said, "Is that the whole truth?" And the full truth came out. So thank you very much for that. Today I want to chat about something very interesting, entitlement. I recently read an article about how kids are feeling entitled these days. From the small things like being spoiled, you know, when you ask your mommy, I want a little cookie, and the mommy says no, but she's like, I want it. To big stuff like parents bribing universities in order to get the undeserving kids into university. So entitlement is something that I'm seeing, and I think lots of people are seeing happening more and more. So I was thinking, as parents, we never set out to create children that are entitled, but oftentimes it does happen. How have you guys seen this topic of entitlement, and how can you perhaps have some handles for parents?
I think entitlement is probably something that the entire South Africa is struggling with, you know? Everybody seems to think they deserve something just because they exist. So I wonder, have we experienced that in some of our kids?
Oh yes, definitely. I think I'm so quiet because I think we experience it within ourselves as well. You know, I think it's something you are constantly confronted with as an adult, as a parent, is how do we set an example to our children of a true servant heart, you know, a heart that really, that doesn't just seek to be seen as not entitled, but a heart that truly isn't entitled. And I don't think on this side of eternity we're going to get it right completely. But there is great value in how we model that as parents. And it's a massive task, I think, just in the modeling of it. Yeah.
I suppose some of our values then that would deal with that would be serving one another and each other in love, serving others in love. And teaching them that, you know, there is a chore and there is a reward, but there isn't just a reward. That sometimes for serving one another, there is no reward. Just the fact that you're part of the family means you have the privilege of serving, you know, without expecting something. The difficulty is that you do teach your children to have healthy expectations. Yeah. Healthy expectations lead to a healthy connection and a healthy family unit. There needs to be expectations. What are your expectations? I expect a meal. I expect it to be involved with my education. So how do you strike that balance between entitlement and healthy expectations?
Yeah, I don't think there's like fast and hard rules in doing this. I think like everything else in parenting, I think it's very unique to your family unit. Also the amounts of children you have, the kind of personalities you are dealing with. But I also think it is the point that you made that for some things there is no reward. And I've seen it so beautifully just within the last 2 weeks. One of our kids got some money. They worked for some money. And without us having to say anything, there was just such generosity that came from this child. And in my heart, I thought to myself, oh, do I tell her she must, you know, remember to give and remember to be generous? And I just left it. And it was so beautiful to see her be generous, because that is what she has seen in our family. We believe to be generous. We believe to, our money is not just ours for us, you know, to look after ourselves. So it is in it being modeled. But then I also think that sometimes, especially in Christian circles, we are so set in that, serving one another shouldn't have reward. But Jesus often rewarded. He often rewarded obedience, or when someone did something good, and it's okay to also show our children that about Jesus, that He is okay to reward us. He wants to reward us. And then there were other times when there was no reward. And I think as parents, it's just for us to really be discerning of when there should be reward and when there shouldn't be reward.
I think what happens in church circles is that God loves a generous heart. And generosity is poured out through His hands and feet, which is us, So take that to a smaller micro atmosphere, like the household. We are still called to be generous then. One of our values is God loves a generous heart.
Yes.
Now when you are generous towards one another because you are modeling something of God's nature, it can easily be seen as, I can get something for nothing. And then this entitlement breeds. That's one of the things. I think another thing that happens in society today is that we make little idols of our children, and they become the center of our universe. So one of the things we often and frequently say to the children is, you are not the center of the universe, Jesus is.
And especially with those personalities that like the center of the attention.
And it seems like it's a sarcastic cut down of somebody, but it's at its core so true. Jesus is the center of the universe, and He doesn't revolve around us, we orbit Him. And you often see, and you can experience it even as parents, how quickly a child can become the center of the universe, in good and in bad ways. We have seen how the adoption process has taken prominence in our family at a time, and I'm sure to others, and if we have to be honest, to us, it took front and center stage. And there was something of, I'm entitled to all this time and this attention. And then there are seasons when that goes away. There was a case when Jude ran through the glass door and almost died when he cut his arm and nearly bled out and had to go for 12 hours of reconstructive surgery. It was a massive thing, and that thing became a consuming thing. And if you don't guard against it, it'll soon become an idol. And it's a hop, skip, and a jump, and that idol leads that child to think they are entitled to being center stage, being the universe, and everything else orbits them. So you have to constantly guard against that. It has to be something that you actively resist and stand against.
I'm just thinking a sense of entitlement also comes for children when there's insecurity for them. And I think it's always good to look at the deeper roots of entitlement. And by that, we are not excusing entitlement in children. But you have to recognize that sometimes entitlement comes because there's a deeper reason for it. So just going back to the adoption process, for instance, where Levi was the center of attention for that moment and that time because that is what was needed. It's to teach our children vulnerability, to be in a space where the others could come to us and say, it's hard for us that he's at the moment the center of attention. And that's why I'm acting the way I am. And then for us, we've never made an excuse for our children to say, look, this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does explain the behavior. And once we can explain the behavior of entitlement, we are accurately able to deal with the entitlement. Because it is actually just something where I was feeling like I wanted to be a little bit more upfront and center, and that's why I acted that way. And the moment there's that vulnerability and you bring it into the light that way, you can just say, I understand that, but how do we correct that? Because it's not okay to do that,
Because I suppose in that instance, the lie is brought into the light.
Yes.
That he is more valuable than I am.
Exactly.
And that's not true.
And that's not true, yeah.
And it would be probably at the root of entitlement then us fighting to express and be validated in our value.
And in our
and
worth.
be formed like about.
And the best way, I think, that we can deal with that entitlement in our children is always to take them back to Jesus. And because when we are in the presence of Jesus, there's an acceptance of us that is unmatched. And the moment that we know how valuable we are to Him, value and worth makes sense. So if we keep taking our kids back to that place of to Him and in Him is your value and your worth, it builds that relationship with God of knowing no matter who comes along, no matter what circumstances are thrown, I'm rooted in the fact that I am valuable to Him. And for that matter, and because of that, I don't have to be entitled for identity purposes.